Hey, what's going on, everybody? So this video is going to be on the legendary gems for the Witch Doctor class and which ones are going to be the most optimal for the end game builds. Obviously you've got Jade Harvester, you've got the various pet builds, Rinho Flayer, Star Metal Kukri, Carnival builds, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, first off we've got the Enforcer gem. Increase the damage of your pets by a percentage, and then at rank 25, your pets take 25% less damage. Now on paper you would think this would be the best pet gem, but it actually stacks additively with the Mask of Jerem pet damage buff and elemental damage. So you actually get way less damage out of this gem than what it looks like on paper. Now in a Carnival build, it's much better. You're going to get more damage out of it because obviously you can't run a Carnival and a Mask of Jerem. I would recommend it in a Carnival build. But as far as the other pet builds with Mask of Jerem, you're probably going to be better off with things like Pain Enhancer, Gogok of Swiftness, and things of that nature. Even the new updated Gem of Efficacious Toxin, which can be procced by pets, which we'll go over in just a minute. Alright, we got Bane of the Trapped. Increase damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by a percentage, and then gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30% at rank 25. Now this is a damage multiplier, which means this is going to be one of the best, if not the best, damage buff out of a legendary gem that you're going to be able to get. For all the classes, really. Most classes are going to try to run this if they can. If they can fit it into their build, if they have enough crowd control, they're going to try to run it. And even builds that don't, that may be melee builds for, say, Monk or Crusader, will still run this as well because that secondary effect will also proc the damage buff. But this is going to be the best gem for Jade builds because Haunt will actually proc this. So you have pretty much 100% uptime on this gem in a Jade Harvester build. It's also going to be good in pet builds too, though. Any Rinho Flayer build running Addling Toads shouldn't have too much trouble keeping this debuff on the enemy. And, Witch Doctor in general has a lot of crowd control abilities, so you should be able to figure out some way to make this gem work, even in a Carnival build, or potentially even a Star Metal Kukri build where you're not really attacking yourself very much. Alright, we've got Zai's Stone of Vengeance. Damage you deal is increased by a percentage for every 10 yards between you and the enemy hit, and then a maximum percentage increase at 50 yards. And then 20% chance on hit to stun the enemy for 1 second. Now, this gem's damage buff is completely dependent on the source of the damage. So if you yourself cast an ability like Firebomb or Haunt or something like that, it's going to be dependent on how far away you are from the enemy. And the same thing applies for Witch Doctor pets. If your fetishes are in melee range attacking, such as in a Rinho Flayer or a Star Metal Kukri build, then they're going to get zero benefit out of this gem, making it pretty useless. It is pretty good though in a Carnival build. Even if you only get half of the damage buff out of the Carnival build, it's still a damage multiplier, which is going to give you a better damage boost than the majority of gems, even if you're not getting that max 50 yards. And then also the 20% chance on hit to stun, along with Snake to the Face, gives you really high uptime on stuns in a Carnival build at that point, especially if you're running the Dagger of Darts to make your darts pierce. And then on top of that, you're also going to be proccing the Bane of the Trapped damage buff as well. So these synergize very well together in a Carnival build. I'd recommend it there. One other thing I'd recommend if you are going to run this and you're trying to stay at max range, think about running a Thing of the Deep as your offhand. That way you get that extra pickup radius so that you have a better chance of constantly proccing Grave Injustice. Otherwise, if you're trying to stay at max range, you may have trouble actually getting the reduction in cooldowns. Alright, we've got Pain Enhancer. Critical hits cause the enemy to bleed for a percentage of your weapon damage is physical over 3 seconds. And then gain Blood Frenzy, granting 3% increased attack speed for each bleeding enemy within 20 yards at rank 25. Now this bleed can actually be procced from critical hits from your pet's attacks, so it makes this extremely good in any pet build. Obviously in a physical pet build, you're going to be stacking physical damage, which will buff the bleed effect, but also any kind of attack speed for a Witch Doctor actually increases the damage of your pets. So the more attack speed, the better there. And then in the majority of pet builds, say you're running a Rinho Flayer physical build, the faster you're attacking with your Addling Toads, the more you're going to crowd control the enemy, and the more fetishes from the passive you're going to spawn. So all around, getting that extra attack speed is extremely good in a build like that. It's still solid even in a Star Metal build where you may not be attacking yourself very much. And then even in a Carnival build, even though in those builds you stack poison damage, it's still really good because every time you shoot a poison dart, your fetishes shoot a poison dart, which makes attack speed king in those builds. If you're going to run this in Carnival, it'd be kind of the opposite playstyle as the Zeiss Stone version. In this version, you'd probably run something like Wall of Zombies to stay in close, almost melee range to the enemies to continuously get the attack speed, extra attack speed from the bleeding enemy. Bane of the Powerful. Gain 20% increased damage for a duration after killing an elite pack, and then at rank 25, you get a static extra 15% damage versus elites. This is one of the gems that's really universally good for every class and every build. Everybody can utilize this thing. It's really good. It's probably like the second best gem for Jade builds, I would say. I would run this, say you only have 2 sockets currently on your jewelry for Jade. You go Bane of the Trapped in this one, in my opinion. And, it can be good in pet builds too. And really, like any other kind of, hybrid builds you want to run, if you're trying to run some, kind of funky stuff on Torment 1 that, isn't really in the meta, then go for it. This thing's just going to be good for everything, really. So go ahead and run it, and it's pretty self-explanatory, really. Alright, we've got Gem of Efficacious Toxin. Poison all enemies hit for a percentage of your weapon damage over 10 seconds, and then at rank 25, all enemies you poison take 10% increased damage from all sources. So whenever you Soul Harvest with the 6-piece Jade Harvester set bonus, you're going to consume this dot as well. So obviously that's very good in that build. And then also you get the 10% increased damage debuff you put on the enemy at rank 25. Just keep in mind that you're not going to get the benefit from the Quetzalcoatl or Creeping Death whenever you consume this particular dot from the gem. So it's probably the third gem that I would run in a Jade build. And then also with patch 2.1.1, they actually changed it so that pets hits will proc this dot damage. So first off, very good in a Carnival build because you're already stacking poison elemental damage, which will buff the dot damage. And then even in physical builds, it's still definitely an option, especially in higher tiered greater rifts where even the white mobs have a ton of health, which makes dots even better. If you're doing Torment 6, probably not that great, but if you're doing 34 plus greater rifts, it's going to be pretty good for you. Gogok of Swiftness. Percentage chance on hit to gain swiftness, increasing your attack speed by 1% for 4 seconds, stacking up to 15 times. And then at rank 25, you also get 1% cooldown reduction per stack of swiftness. So you got 2 builds this is really good in. Carnival, first off, attack speed, like we've already talked about, is what you really want in those builds. And then cooldown reduction is also extremely good, especially now that in a lot of Carnival builds you're going to be running the Dagger of Darts. Star Metal Kukri is still really good, don't get me wrong, but Dagger of Darts I prefer. I think it's more fun to play, and I think it synergizes better overall. So more cooldown reduction for your Big Bad Voodoo, and if you're running Fetish Army on a cooldown and things like that, it's really good. And then obviously the attack speed like we already talked about. You shoot darts more often, your fetishes shoot darts more often because you're shooting them, and then they also get damage from the attack speed. And then also in Renho Flayer builds, you want to be casting those toads as much as possible for the passive, to spawn the fetishes, and then again, to buff your pet's damage. Alright, so that's pretty much the best gems for the Witch Doctor, in my opinion. The rest of the gems you could make work, but they're not going to be optimal, but we're going to go over them real quick anyways. So we got the Taeguk. Gain 0.5% increased damage for 3 seconds after spending a primary resource, stacking up to 20 times, and then as you rank this up, it's going to stack higher and higher. And then at rank 25, you also gain 0.5% increased armor for every stack. This is a gem that any build where you're spending a primary resource constantly, you can make work. I think it's kind of a pain to keep this buff going, but it's definitely something that you can run. It is an option. You could even run it in Jade Harvester builds if you really wanted to, because you can pretty much constantly spam Haunt. As long as your resources allow you to do so, and if you're set up properly, you should be able to do that. But with that said, I just think I don't like the playstyle personally, but if you do, go ahead and run it. We've got Simplicity Strength. Increase the damage of your primary skills by 25%, and then at rank 25, primary skills heal you for 2% of your maximum health on hit. Any builds where you're running like Addling Toads or Explosive Toads or something along those lines, you could make this work in. I really don't think there's going to be any kind of end-game builds where it's going to be good, but if you're running Torment 1 or Low Torments or something like that and you want to make it work, You could probably put together a pure fire build with explosive toads and a Renho Flare with this gym. That would be pretty fun. For speed farming, low torments, low difficulties, go ahead and do that. We've got the Wreath of Lightning, 15% chance on hit to gain a Wreath of Lightning, dealing 600% weapon damage as lightning every second to nearby enemies for 3 seconds. And then at rank 25, while you have that Wreath of Lightning up, you gain 25% increased movement speed. As far as Witch Doctor goes, I really only like this gym if you're doing like speed farming bounties or something like that. I mean, on Torment 6, it's really pretty good, especially if it's rank 25 to get that boost in speed. Other than that, there's really not too many applications for it. I think it's really just more of like a speed farming gym, and it's going to be better on other classes, especially ones that can stack lightning damage on their gear. We've got the Moratorium. 25% of all damage taken is instead staggered and dealt to you over 3 seconds. And then at rank 25, 10% chance on kill to clear all staggered damage. Not a bad defensive gym, but to be honest with you, in any of the Witch Doctor builds currently, the way that they're set up, it's really not going to be that good. You can try to run it, but the high-end players on the leaderboards and things like that, they're getting their defense elsewhere, and then the gyms that they run are for the most part offensive. Invigorating Gemstone. While under any control impairing effects, reduce all damage taken by a percentage, and then at rank 25, you heal for 20% of maximum life when hit by a control impairing effect. For the most part, as a Witch Doctor, you're trying to stay out of control impairing effects if you can. Certain things you can't dodge, like Jailer, unless you have the Countess Julia's amulet. So some things you're going to get hit by, but for the most part, even if you do get hit by something, you're going to spirit walk out of it very quickly, making this gym not that great. It is an option, I suppose, but I wouldn't run it personally. Got the Teardrop of the Star Weaver. 50% chance on hit to smite a nearby enemy for a percentage of your weapon damage is holy, and then at rank 25, you just smite a nearby enemy every 5 seconds. Now, I think this is decent in a Addling Toads or Explosive Toads Renho Flare build. It's going to proc pretty often. I don't really think there's too many other applications for it on a Witch Doctor, and obviously we're not going to be stacking holy damage to buff the proc. It's going to be much better on a Monk or a Crusader. But with that said, I think if you are running some sort of Renho Flare build, you could make it work if you wanted to. It's going to proc a decent amount. And then the last one, we got the Boon of the Hoarder, the Gold Gem. I mean, really, any kind of speed farming you're doing, especially on Torment 6 if you're solo farming, or even in a group, and you have the damage to do it efficiently, go ahead and run this thing and just stack a ton of gold. So there you go, guys. There's all the gems. Hopefully it was beneficial to somebody. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.